All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. We've got a broad array of expertise present today, and we're eager to hear how we can support you. So, we've got a little bit of general topic information to share, and then we'll open it up for questions. If you have questions, please either write them in the chat or raise your hand, which you'll find under the reactions button at the bottom of your screen. And we'll call on you. Don't hesitate to interrupt. We're all pretty casual, informal folks. So next slide, Josh. Thank you. So to start out, we wanted to share a few sort of pearls of wisdom or health and wellness hacks with you that apply to all areas of health and wellness. That will, we hope, help you to become more consistent and more successful with some of the health and wellness interventions, if you will. So the first thing up there is to be mindful and intentional, and that really is a super important reminder about everything related to your health and well-being. Health and wellness are things that most people take for granted until we lose them or until they're threatened by something. And so they're not something we think about, especially if we're young and healthy and feeling pretty good, and life is busy and we have a lot of other things to worry about. So being thoughtful and mindful and just checking in with yourself on a regular basis, whether it be before you eat, like checking in with yourself and asking yourself, what am I hungry for? What do I need to eat to help me get through the rest of my day, for example, to be the best person I can be? What is my body telling me? Do I need to move? Do I need to sleep? Do I need to take a break? Does my brain need a break? So being mindful and intentional is a really good first step for any of the things that we're going to be talking about today. The second thing to think about is connecting health and wellness habits to the things in your life that are most important to you. So if we can see a connection between some of these health habits that might be a little challenging to do on a regular basis, we can make a connection to those and our important life goals and values, then sometimes it's easier to get motivated. So for example, if I value being able to travel and go places and see the world, then that might help me be more physically active on a regular basis, because regular physical activity will help me be able to go places and do things and be able to keep up with others. If I have a small child or any kind of child, and maybe I want them to learn good habits as they grow up, then that might be a strong source of motivation for me to demonstrate those or to model those behaviors. So connecting our health habits with our important life goals can be an important source of motivation. The next one is planning. Unfortunately, it's really hard to do a lot of the things we'll talk about today if we don't plan for it. So it's really hard to be physically active throughout our day if we don't plan for it. So if we don't have tennis shoes with us, for example, or if we don't think about when in our day we might be able to fit something like that in. Same thing with eating. It's really hard to accidentally eat healthy because healthy food may not be available. So planning is super important. So being thoughtful, being intentional, thinking about things, planning is really a key to success in these areas. Those are the big three, I would say. These other things are also helpful. Scheduling health and wellness time, so putting it on your schedule and trying to communicate to others that time is important to you, and you want to try to keep it at all cost. If you don't schedule it, it's probably not likely to get done. So scheduling it. There's something called habit stacking, which is a James Clear term. He said, if you're trying to create a new habit for something that you don't do regularly, that you want to start doing regularly, try stacking it onto something you do regularly. So his example in his book is every morning he would go downstairs and make a pot of coffee. And he would just kind of stand there waiting for his coffee to brew. So while his coffee was brewing, he got down on the floor and did 10 push-ups because he wanted to do more push-ups. So think about a habit that you have that is regular and try to stack something on top of it that can help you get it in your day. Finding somebody to hold you accountable, a friend, a family member, somebody you could do it with, someone will call you and say, hey, we agreed to do this. Come on, let's go. Or check in with you and ask you how it's going. That's very helpful. And then trying to make the positive habits attractive, obvious, easy, satisfying, and trying to make the negative habits sort of harder to get to, less attractive, and unsatisfying. That takes some thought, but it is definitely something that you can do. So trying to spend some time thinking about that and then implementing whatever ideas you come up with can be helpful. Next slide, Josh. So then specifically, I'm a physical therapist by training, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about musculoskeletal wellness in general. So the first thing to remember is that bones and muscles like to move. We have a phrase in physical therapy we like to use, motion is lotion. So sedentary lifestyles, sedentary days, sedentary work is really bad for our musculoskeletal health, our bones and muscles and joints. So moving is super important. So move regularly. That's my first suggestion. Secondly, listen to pain. Pain when you're moving doesn't mean to stop necessarily. It could mean you should alter your form, or your shoes might be worn out if you're walking, or the surface you're on isn't the best supportive surface. Something going on. You should definitely pay attention to pain, but it doesn't necessarily mean stop. If you have pain during movement, as long as it doesn't last for more than 2 hours after movement, it's okay. Sometimes when our joints start to wear out, pain is a natural consequence of that. And as long as it's maybe a little uncomfortable when you're doing it, but it goes away, that's perfectly fine. You're not doing any damage. So if you have pain that has a different pattern than those I've described, you might want to see your physical therapist who can help you with that. There's high impact activities and low impact activities. High impact activities are things like anything that's weight bearing. So walking, running, jumping, HIIT programs, high intensity interval training. Those are fine for people of all ages if your joints are healthy. If your joints are not healthy, so if you have osteoarthritis in a joint, which is an extremely common condition, I have a couple of joints myself with osteoarthritis, then you might consider more low impact activities. So bicycling, walking in a limited fashion, just not on a hard surface. So maybe a grass or soft trail. Swimming, fantastic activity. Any kind of Pilates, yoga, stretching, anything like that is really, really good if you have more problematic joints. And so even for people with joint diseases or joint problems or injuries, motion is still really important. The days of us making people lay down or sit down and do nothing are over. There's just about no conditions left that don't respond to movement. People ask me about stretching all the time. Stretching is fine and can really make our body feel better. It's best to do it when your body is warm. So it's best after physical activity. So if you're walking or running or just doing any kind of physical activity, taking a WellCats class, it's really better for your the response of your tendons and muscles if you would stretch when your body's warm, so after the class. And then going back to that first thing I said, sedentary behaviors are really bad for us. Try to limit sitting to 1 hour. Even if you're sitting in a very good posture, a healthy posture, try to limit sitting to no more than 1 hour. So if you work in a position of sitting all day, set some kind of timer or note for yourself to stand up at least once an hour. You can probably notice that I'm moving around a little bit. I have a standing desk at home and in the office. So the only time I have to sit is really when I'm in a meeting, when it would be kind of awkward if I were standing. So try to stand or stand up and move around as much as possible. That's all for me. Thanks.
All right, so to pick up where Janet left off there, we're going to talk about the guidelines for physical activity, daily physical activity and exercise as prescribed by the American College of Sports Medicine and the CDC. So much of what she talked about is going to kind of nicely flow into these guidelines here. So ACSM and the CDC current recommendations for guidelines for adults age 18 to 65, we want to see that they engage in moderate physical activity, specifically aerobic conditioning for at least 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Now, what is moderate physical activity? What would that be defined as? So some examples of that would be just a brisk walk, perhaps engaging in aerobic water classes. So those are great because they're low impact or no impact there. Dancing, maybe doubles tennis, or pushing your lawn to be mowed. So that push lawn mower, that's a great activity. I love doing it, actually. Then let's get into vigorous intensity of exercise. So this would be a minimum of 20 minutes a week, 3 days, 20 minutes, 3 days a week. And some vigorous forms of physical activity would be running, swimming, some aerobics activities, or moving upstairs. So there's really just any combination of these modern and vigorous activities to build up to that total of basically getting around 150 minutes per week in total. And then it's also prescribed for all adults to engage in at least 2 days a week of muscular resistance training that will work to increase their muscular strength and endurance. So I left our link there that I'm sure we might be sharing these slides, so you can check that out later. Okay, Josh, if you'll advance for me. Thank you. So here I just wanted to just highlight some of the benefits. I think that we talk about these quite a bit, but benefits of regular physical activity, habitual physical activity. We want to engage in this to lower risk for cardiovascular disease, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, adverse blood lipid profiles, certain cancers, and then we'll talk about some brain health here in a second, as well as other things that help. Physical activity helps us to enhance. Then, of course, we have weight loss that can come with regular habitual physical activity paired with a reduction in overall calorie intake. And Lindsay's going to talk to you all about the nutritional piece. Improved bone health, physical function, lower falls for risk in our older adults. All right, there, Josh, you can take us forward. Thank you. And as far as physical activity and brain health, habitual physical activity is going to reduce the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's in our adults, improve our cognitive function, increase our overall quality of life, reduce risk of depression and anxiety, and then improve our sleep patterns. So we know when we're physically active, we move our body, we can sleep better at night, and we have a more restful sleep. It helps us get into those sleep patterns. And I'm not going to be a sleep expert here and talk more about sleep, but maintaining regular sleep routines is very important. All right, Josh. And what I have here for you today, if you want to take a screenshot of it, feel free to, but here is just a quick snapshot of your physical activity. I like the way they put it together, Move Your Way, because I think the biggest piece about being physically active is sometimes we can get caught up on, are we doing it right? Are we doing the right thing? Am I making a difference? Well, my message to you today is any physical activity, any movement is important, and each time you move, it's going to build upon the others. So just move your body and move it in a way that feels good to you. It's okay to have a little bit of intensity and challenge, as Janet mentioned, but you don't want to be in pain. So we want at least 150 minutes per week of that aerobic exercise, and at least 2 days a week of building our muscular strength and endurance. All right, Josh. In terms of benefits from resistance training, we have our key benefits. We know that it's going to increase our strength, our power, and our endurance. It's going to build our muscle and connective growth and durability. Okay, so it's going to help strengthen our bones. It's going to, that muscle and brain communication is going to be there. We're going to see a benefit in terms of aerobic health, as well as blood glucose regulation. So it helps improve diabetes. Then management or treatment of conditions, arthritis, certain cancers, cardiovascular disease, dementia, depression, diabetes, our risk for falls, being frail, hypertension, insomnia, low back pain. So, sometimes if a person is experiencing low back pain, they may shy away from resistance training, when actually, if we can get you in there and correctly perform exercises, we can strengthen those muscles to become more supportive of your core and help alleviate some of that pain. Mental health, movement disorders, obesity, osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, pulmonary disease, peripheral vascular disease, and even stroke. So we know that we want a good combination of either free weights, machines or bands, anything like that can be used, and even our own body weight. We want to perform 8 to 10 multi-joint exercises. So we want to challenge multiple areas at once and stress those major muscle groups, performing 2 to 3 sets of 8 to 12 repetitions. So if we did a bicep curl to an overhead press, and then a bicep curl to overhead press, we would want to complete that 8 to 12 repetitions with a weight heavy enough to challenge us to complete upwards of that 12 reps. And as we rotate through a routine, then we would complete that 2 to 3 times. So we would want to challenge our entire body, lifting both weights for the lower portion and the upper portion of our body. And we want them to push to a point of volitional fatigue. So what does that mean? A point at which we almost feel like we can't complete that last repetition, and we hit a momentary failure of that muscle. So then we would back off and move on to the next set and complete all of our exercises. And we would want to do this at minimum 2 times a week, and over time increase the resistance that we're pushing against. So increasing those weights. For example, if you're performing a bicep curl to overhead press and you're starting with 8-pound weights, then over time, eventually you would move up to your 10-pound weights. All right, Josh. And what I have here for you, again, feel free to take a little picture of it. This is a quick 7-minute HIIT workout. You would perform each exercise for 30 seconds with a 10-second rest in between. And you would just cycle through those exercises, all 12 of those exercises, and see how much you can get done then within those 7 minutes. If you need to take any rest, you would complete it somewhere around 2 to 3 times. So what's great about this workout is no equipment is necessary. If you have a chair in your office or a set of stairs that you can step up and down on, that's really all you need. Maybe a mat on the floor or a towel, but you have a great 7-minute workout right here that challenges your whole entire body. And yeah, it's easy, fun, and no equipment necessary. So that's all I have for y'all today. I'm going to pass the baton to Lindsay now.
Thank you, Carolyn. Hi, everybody. I am Lindsay Mingy, and I am going to be talking to you a little bit about nutrition today. My training is as a registered dietitian, but I also teach here at Texas State within our nutrition faculty. And one of the things that I wanted to just kind of orient you to when we're thinking about how can we optimize our nutrition, because I think this is something that especially over the last year and a half has been more at the forefront of our minds of what can we do for our nutrition to improve our immune system or encourage us to lower our risk of chronic diseases, or help us to just feel our best. When we think about that, one of our primary areas of focus is our dietary guidelines for Americans. This is really where the culmination of the nutrition research that is describing what a healthy diet should look like really is then made available to the public of how do we synthesize all of that research into something that's practical guidelines that we can follow for our health. And you might have seen me talk about before or with some other nutrition courses that you may have taken, are MyPlate. And this is an example of MyPlate, which is a snapshot of our dietary guidelines for Americans and helps to kind of orient you to thinking about when you sit down and you have a plate of food, what should that plate look like to help optimize your health? And ideally, our goal with our dietary guidelines for Americans or with MyPlate is that we want to think about more whole foods in our diet. So encouraging to have more fruits and vegetables on our plate, thinking about more color from our fruits and vegetables when we're consuming them. Also maintaining a diet that is rich in primarily whole grains versus our refined grains or more processed carbohydrates. And then having things like lean protein, where we're opting for more fish or chicken or turkey or our plant-based proteins versus things like our red meats or our pork or things of that nature. And then including things like water or if you're going to consume dairy, thinking that you're doing like low fat or fat-free dairy. And our goal with this is that when individuals have diets that are more aligned with the dietary guidelines for Americans, we see that lowest risk of the development of chronic health conditions, better blood sugar management. Like Carolyn was mentioning, exercise is really great for blood sugar management, but our diet also plays a huge role in that. We see an impact in things like other chronic health conditions like overweight or obesity tends to improve when an individual is eating with a diet that's more aligned with the dietary guidelines. Cancer risk, cardiovascular disease risk are all improved. And so while it sounds great to align our diets with the MyPlate or dietary guidelines for Americans, sometimes it can feel challenging to try to make some of the changes that it might require to fully embrace MyPlate or the dietary guidelines. So one of the things that I just wanted to encourage for all of you is to think about what are some realistic goals that you could set. So rather than trying to, go from 0 to 100 with improving the healthfulness of your plate, is maybe thinking about one thing that you could aim to improve. Maybe that goal is that you are going to, focus on having a vegetable at all of your main meals. Or maybe it is that you are going to, think about just having breakfast in the morning. It is, often I find for many of the individuals that I work with that skipping meals is more common, or we're just not giving ourselves that time to really have self-care to set those 10 or 15 minutes aside to have something like breakfast in the morning, or to oftentimes I have clients that are working through lunch, so also making sure we just take a moment to give ourselves that meal. We might also think about something like for whole grains. Maybe it is, focusing on having a whole grain source once a day. Those types of small, more realistic goals, what we often see is those small goals end up leading to really big changes with time because they are goals that you can follow and stick to. When approaching making healthful changes as well, I would say to opt for thinking for balance. focusing on something like trying to have a plate that has more of your fruits and vegetables on that plate. And again, I would also think about those realistic goals of what are some of the fruits or vegetables that you enjoy the most. Start with those and trying to add those to your plate rather than, feeling like you've got to really go outside of your comfort zone, and pick out a lot of different fruits or vegetables that maybe aren't as familiar to you. Or I would also challenge you to maybe step outside of that comfort zone and explore some of the different fruits or vegetables that you might not have tried yet, because you may find you really enjoy them. But it really depends on the type of person that you are and how you want to approach that realistic goal setting. I would also encourage you to think more about incorporating whole grains into your diet. So this is often one that I find for many individuals is an easier change to make. If you're someone who has been, used to just utilizing more refined grains in your diet. So for instance, maybe your pattern is that you consume more white rice, or you have things like white bread at home. Swapping those out for whole grain options like your brown rice, or trying a different type of whole grain like quinoa or barley or something of that nature, and then swapping out your white bread for something like a whole grain or stone ground bread, something of that nature, can not feel like it takes a lot of effort or change, but is an easy swap to do that most of the time I find people enjoy the flavor that they get from whole grain foods, oftentimes a lot more than they did from the refined varieties that they might be consuming. And then thinking about variety and color, when making healthful changes, so often approaching it from the standpoint of trying not to do the same thing every day, but mixing it up is a great way not only to get more nutrition out of your foods and get, a mix of vitamins and minerals in your diet, but also to keep it more interesting. And when things are more interesting and we're enjoying our plate more, we're more likely to stick with that pattern of eating. And so thinking about how can, when I sit down to have a meal, maybe try something new again, or have a plate that looks really beautiful and colorful, thinking the rainbow. I always feel like if I sit down and I've got a lot of color on my plate, I'm like, ooh, I'm excited to eat this meal. But what we also know is that when we have more colorful foods and we're eating the rainbow, we get a particular type of support from those foods, which is something known as phytonutrients. Phytonutrients are what give color to our foods. So we have phytonutrients that give an orange or a red color to our foods. We have phytonutrients that give green colors to our foods. We have phytonutrients that give purple and bluish color and white colors to our foods. So when we consume that rainbow, we get different types of phytonutrients. And these phytonutrients are really important to things like reducing our risk of cardiovascular disease, of many cancers, of improving our memory and cognition. The list just goes on, and we're still learning about all the amazing things that phytonutrients do for us. So just by thinking about more color in your food, it can be a game changer for your health. Another tip that I wanted to talk with you all about is eating more of your calories rather than drinking them. I find this is often an area where, especially when we start getting into the holidays and it's like, you've got the pumpkin frappuccinos, or you have the, like the shamrock milkshake, or some of these other types of drinks that, these specialty drinks that we often have, easily available to us. What surprises many is how many calories are in a lot of those drinks that we have. And even outside of those specialty drinks, just if you're someone who consumes a soda every day, or if you're somebody who, goes to Starbucks every day and you're having coffee with cream and sugar in it, those calories can really add up, and then they can contribute to things like overweight or obesity, or just making it more challenging to then regulate things like your calorie intake. So focusing more on trying to get the most out of your calories from your foods, and then limiting where you're getting some of those extra calories from beverages, can make a huge difference. So think about opting for maybe sparkling waters, or if you're a tea person, Or maybe can you get your coffee a little bit more black with a little less cream and a little less sugar in it? And working towards that can make a big difference in your goals. And then enlisting support. You know, it's so important. I feel like for all of us over this last year and a half, we have recognized in different ways the importance of having each other, and that that connection helps us to be better. And it, certainly when we think about our nutrition, having others that can be a motivator for you or supporter to you in your goals can be extremely helpful. So engaging in our nutrition counseling sessions, or coming to some of our nutrition cooking classes, or engaging in health behavior change coaching. These are all different ways to enlist the support that WellCats has available to you, but also reaching out to a friend and saying, hey, I want to eat healthier, help support me in this, right? I feel like a lot of people right now are in your corner with that and also could use that support. Okay, Josh, next slide, thanks. And then I just had a few other tips. I think sometimes the area I find that people struggle the most is trying to get more plants into their diet. You know, if you are someone who has kind of shied away from consuming lots of fruits and vegetables, or maybe you have some you like, some you don't, this is an area where, again, you're not alone. A lot of people struggle to add and infuse more fruits and vegetables into their life. So I just put in a few tips that I thought might be helpful for you along the way. One of the easiest I find is to increase fruit intake. If this is an area where you know you're not meeting your recommendations, we typically encourage 3 cups of vegetables every day and 2 cups of fruit for the average individual. So if you're not meeting that 2 cups of fruit, an easy way to be able to do that would be to incorporate it with your snacks. So having something like an apple with some peanut butter, or grapes and a cheese stick. Or, you know, having some banana slices with, you know, some crackers or something along those lines can be just a very simple way to boost your fruit intake for the day. In terms of vegetables, there are a lot of different hacks for how to get more vegetables into your diet. But one of my favorite ones is to add more vegetables to your favorite dishes. So things that you already like, you're already familiar with, you know you're going to want to eat them. That's a place to try to put some vegetables in there. So if you make like a mean lasagna, really pump up that lasagna with extra vegetables. Add some, you know, extra onions, extra tomatoes, put some spinach in there, maybe even chop up some broccoli or something like that. Play around, put some mushrooms in there, right? Play around with that recipe and really amp up the vegetables that are in there. Adding them to things like meatloaf or your pasta sauces. If you have little ones at home that, you know, really struggle to get their vegetables in, I am a huge fan of blending vegetables into sauces. So if you have a, you know, tomato sauce, put some broccoli and spinach in there and blend it all up together and put that on the spaghetti, or, you know, on whatever it is that you might be making. And it is a great, easy way to get more vegetables in without really noticing that they're there. Or adding some other vegetables to pizza toppings. And again, if you have little ones at home, this is a great way to get them involved, is have them, you know, help you to pick out some of the vegetables to put on as toppings. And if they're old enough to do some chopping, you could have them do some chopping to help you with that process. Soups or stews are also a really easy way to just add in and pump in some more vegetables into that, you know, bisque that you're making, or stew. Starting early is a great way to enhance your intake of plants. So making sure that you have breakfast in the morning. When we skip meals, it makes it a lot harder for us to be able to meet our recommendations for our fruit and vegetable intake. So if we start early with our breakfast and add something like fruits or vegetables in, we're already starting the day with a bang. So adding fruit as topping in things like your oatmeal or yogurt or cereal, or putting it into a smoothie. I'm also a huge fan of making things like muffins or breads where you know, can add things like carrots or zucchini, and shred them up in those muffins or in those breads and just amp up their nutritional value. And then trying different cooking techniques. I often hear people say to me there's certain vegetables in particular that they just don't like. And usually I say to them, I challenge you to try cooking it in a different way, because often it's the preparation that's part contributing at least to why you aren't enjoying that fruit or vegetable as much. So things like stir frying your vegetables or trying to roast them. Brussels sprouts are so delicious when they're roasted. Broccoli is so delicious when it's roasted. Onions or tomatoes are amazing when they're roasted as well. So some of those different types of cooking techniques can really make a difference there. But you want to be sure that you keep a crunch. When we keep a crunch to our vegetables, we preserve a lot of their nutritional content, and it takes a little longer for us to eat them. And it tends to be a little bit more appealing to us as well because we get more texture from that food. So it often will contribute to our sense of fullness if we can keep them just a little bit al dente in the cooking process. And then don't forget about herbs and spices. This is such a great way to amp up your intake of certain types of foods if you're struggling to enjoy their flavor. Putting some different herbs or different spices into whatever stir fry you're doing or whatever roasting of vegetables you're doing is a great way to enhance their enjoyment. And that's it. I'm going to turn it over to our next presenter.
Thank you, Lindsay. Just great information. My name is Becky Gillespie, and I am a wellness consultant for Blue Cross and Blue Shield. So I'm going to talk about, now that you've learned all these great tips, some resources that you have through your Health Select plan. And we're going to start with your mental health virtual visits. And these are actually flyers that are on these slides that I believe we can probably send out to you all. But just so that you know, if you go to the www.healthselectoftexas.com website, all of the information that I'm talking about today is on that website as well. But this is a great they really wanted to give you an idea of, there's these wonderful virtual visits that are available with Health Select now. But I wanted to talk about a couple different ways that you can access these virtual visits. The first thing you can do is to actually connect with a Blue Cross Blue Shield personal health assistant, or we call them a PHA. And again, their contact information, phone number, as well as a chat is on that Health Select of Texas website. But if you call them, they can really give you some great mental health resources. Find out for you, if you are looking for a provider, what does the plan cover, who is in network, how much is a visit going to cost you. But you also have this wonderful virtual visit, and I think a lot of us have now been learning how to utilize this option through the pandemic, and it's really, really very convenient. And we've had both medical and mental health virtual visits, but just recently they actually lowered the copay, which I'll talk about in a second. But you have two providers for virtual visits. You have MD Live and Doctor on Demand. And both of those, you can get apps on your smartphone for these, and you can use either one of them to connect with a virtual provider. And the great thing is you can choose your providers for mental health. I had been searching for one for my daughter for a while, and sometimes it's hard to connect to the right person, the person that feels like you can trust and all of that when you're talking about your own mental health. So the nice thing is, with this option, you can actually see their credentials. You've got a variety of providers to choose from, and you just choose based on what you're looking to do, whether it's that you want to seek a counselor, or you want to see a psychiatrist or a therapist. There's all different types of providers, and again, you can see their credentials. So then the next step is to meet with that provider. Sometimes it takes 5 days to 2 weeks to actually connect to a provider. But most of the time I've found that it really doesn't take that long. And that initial appointment is really just, again, to give you an overview of what to expect. And you can meet that provider and decide whether or not you feel like that provider is who you want to work with. And you can move forward in scheduling your follow-up visits with them. And you set your schedule with them, which is nice. So that way you can meet with them as often as you need to. And then, Josh, you can go on to the next slide if you would. And so this just describes some of the areas that these virtual visit providers can talk to you about: anxiety, depression, relationship issues, trauma and loss, insomnia, addiction, stress, anger management. And I think oftentimes there's a stigma around this. But I think more and more we understand how our mental health not only can be affected in everything that's going on in the world, but how important it is for us to take hold of that for ourselves. So I really encourage you to reach out if you are experiencing any of these issues. Reach out to either that virtual the PHA, the personal health assistant, and they can talk you through. And you can see here they are available from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and Saturday 7 to 3. And so they can give you and walk you through how the virtual visits work if you'd like, or give you some other resources. Or you can simply, like I said, load Doctor on Demand or MD Live or both on your phone. You just need your member ID to be able to do that. And you're going to be able to search for providers and select one to meet with, and decide if you want to move forward with meeting them on a regular basis. So the great thing about this is they have now made it so the Health Select of Texas plan, the Health Select out of state, and the Health Select secondary, there is no cost, which is fantastic. It really, really is such a fantastic benefit. I encourage you to utilize it. If you happen to be on consumer directed Health Select, you will have to pay the 20% of the allowable amount after you meet your deductible. So I don't think very many people have that consumer directed, but it's still, even if you do, it's still a really, really great resource. All right, Josh, you can move to the next one. And then this is actually a kind of a flip book, but they've put it in the slide format here, and it's called The Road to Wellness. You can move to the next one. And this I really want you to pay attention to, because there is a portal called Well on Target that you have access to that has a ton of different resources and programs to help you with everything that Lindsay and Carolyn and Janet were talking about, with basically with nutrition, with fitness, with anything that you're trying to work on, stress management. There's just all kinds of great resources. But this is how you are going to access. You're actually going to go to that healthselectivetexas.com website. So I want you all to get really familiar with that. And then in the upper right hand corner, you can log in to your Blue Access for Members account. And if you don't know what that is, or you don't have that created yet, that is where all of your health insurance information is housed. So all your claims, your provider finder, all of that great stuff. So I recommend that if you haven't created your account, you can do that right there too. You can just hit register now. And again, you just need your member ID from your insurance card in order to log in, and then create your account, and then you can log into your account. And once you get in there, under quick links on Blue Access for Members, you're just going to click on Well on Target. It's going to take you straight to that website. And that's where all of those wellness resources are housed. And that, again, is what's nice about it is after you log into Blue Access for Members from Health Select and click on Well on Target, you don't need another username and password. It's going to take you straight there. So it's a single sign-on option, which is awesome. So once again, go to Health Select. You want to hit register now or log into your Blue Access for Members account. Go to the quick links, which is on the left-hand side. Hit Well on Target. It's going to take you straight there. And then Josh, you can move on to the next slide. So what is on Well on Target? This is a little bit of a screenshot of what it looks like. You can take a health assessment, which is fantastic because it's going to give you lots of great information. I'll talk about that in a second. There's also these Blue Points incentive rewards. There's self-management programs. There's up to 26 different self-management programs, everything from tobacco cessation to weight loss to stress management. There's lots of content and information in these courses, but they also help you set goals and help you move forward through creating some healthy behavior change. So they're not just, you know, you listen to a video and do nothing. They really push you forward into creating and really utilizing that information in a way that you can help create that, you know, the healthier habits. Like I said, lots of health and wellness content, everything you can think of in there. There's trackers, which when I say trackers, like tracking your nutrition, tracking your oral health. Maybe you're not, I know every time I go to the dentist, they say, have you been, you know, flossing? And I feel like I think about it for about a week before my dentist appointment, but I want to get better at it, right? You can actually track that. You can track, there's about 12 to 15 different things that you can track on there. And it just makes you more mindful of your behaviors, and it really helps you connect to what you're trying to accomplish. There's an interactive symptom checker on there. I'm definitely like to self-diagnose, which is not a good thing, but you might as well look at something that's really going to give you some good information. It's kind of like WebMD. You can sync your fitness tracker, and you can use these My Journey recommendations. So when you complete the health assessment, it actually gives you these little cards that you see here on the left, which will prompt you to do different things to improve those areas that you might want to improve. So it gives you a plan, which is really great. So again, you log into that Blue Access for Members, go to Quick Links, log on to Well on Target, and you're going to have access to all of this wonderful stuff. All right, and you can move to the next slide, Josh. And this is just a little bit about what the health assessment looks like. I love that it gives you this snapshot of your health. And you can take this every 6 months, this health assessment, which I think that's important because our health changes. I think a lot of us have maybe experienced a lot of change over the past year, year and a half, because our lifestyles have just, you know, they've really changed. So it's important to keep a hold of what's really going on with your health and kind of know your numbers. So that health assessment tells you the areas you're doing well and then the areas that you might want to focus on. And you'll be able to actually compare the health assessments when you take them. Like I said, every 6 months you can take them. You also earn these Blue Points, which I'll talk about in a second, and you earn 2,500 Blue Points every time you take the health assessment. So twice a year you can earn 5,000 Blue Points, and it's again a fantastic way to not only know your health, but it's going to give you those My Journey recommendations on Well on Target to help move you through to improve those areas that you might have ranked a little bit lower on. All right, and you can move to the next slide. And then these Blue Points, they're fantastic. It's a fun way to get a little bit of an incentive and also be working on your health and wellness. So once you start utilizing Well on Target, you earn these Blue Points for all kinds of things. When you complete courses, when you use your trackers, it will show you on your dashboard all the ways you can earn points. And then you can actually redeem those points for just about anything you can think of. It's really like kind of like an Amazon shopping experience in that you can just do a search for something that you're looking for, and it's going to tell you how many points For me, I actually this year my hair dryer blew up, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to see if I can get a hair dryer with my Blue Points. And there were like 20 different types of hair dryers. I got a really nice one, used my Blue Points. It was shipped to me within like 3 days. There's no shipping cost. So it's just a great way for you to see that you're getting those Blue Points as you're improving your health. I do want to say that there is a cap on how many points that you can use. It's 17,325 points per calendar year. However, you can earn as many points as you want, and they roll over. You never lose them. So if you forget to cash them out, they're always going to be there for you. But there is that cap, which is equivalent to about $99. But like I said, you can still get some really great things. You can get smaller items, or you can save up that total amount, that 17,325, and get a larger item. You can also, there's everything on there. I mean, you could, you can find furnishings and big screen TVs and, all kinds of stuff on there. And if there is something larger that you want to purchase, you can just pay the difference. So you can get $99 basically off of whatever item it is that you're wanting. So great program. And as I'm going through, you guys feel free to put any questions in the chat so we can answer those at the end. Go ahead and move forward, Josh. And then the fitness program. This fitness program gives you an unlimited access to a nationwide network of gyms. They have changed it in the past year or so, and it's now a tiered program because they wanted to add in gyms that had more amenities and that maybe had a little bit of higher price point. So they're basically 4 tiers. The lowest tier is $19 a month plus tax. The highest tier is $99 a month plus tax, but that's for like a lifetime fitness membership, as well as being able to have access to all the other tiers in between. So there's a $19, there's a $29, there's a $39, and there's a $99. And to see what gyms are available in each of those tiers, you just go back to that Blue Access for members, like I talked about, to access Well on Target, and hit fitness program, and it will allow you to do a search by zip code. So it's a really great program. There is a one-time $19 enrollment fee for all of the tiers. But the other really cool thing they added was a virtual option. And I actually used this a lot. I actually canceled my membership at one point during COVID. And then they added this option, which they actually have 3 different virtual options. They have on-demand classes. They've now added an on-demand Les Mills, which is like Body Pump, Body Combat. And then there's an app called, Burn Along, that has everything from HIIT to bar to Zumba. There's nutrition, and that is just a $10 per month plus tax, and there is no enrollment fee for that. So you can sign up just for the digital only platform. But if you join any of the tiers, you get it automatically. So I've rejoined my gym, and sometimes I work out at home with that virtual only option, and sometimes I go to the gym. So it's really nice to have that. You do get the 2,500 Blue Points for joining, and then you can get up to 300 Blue Points per week just by checking into the gym, to those gyms that you're going to. So there's the phone number here that you can call to get more information, or you can also access that information, like I said, on Blue Access for members under fitness program, under the quick links. And then you can move to the next slide. And then 2 weight management programs that you all have available. I love listening to Lindsay and her. It just always, nutrition is so complicated, or it feels like it is sometimes. So it's really nice to have people break it down simply for you. And you've got 2 programs available for you. One is called Wonder, one is called Real Appeal. And both programs are fantastic, but they're different, which I kind of like because what works for one person might not work for another. So it's the only thing that you have to be a Health Select participant. So if you do have Health Select and you have anybody on your plan that's on Health Select, that's 18 years of age or older, they can also participate in these programs. But you do have to have a BMI of 23 or above. And when you go through the process of enrolling, it will determine that for you and let you know if you qualify. But just a little bit of difference between the two. I'm going to start with Real Appeal. Real Appeal is pretty structured, and you actually set a time and day every week that you meet with the transformation coach virtually on your phone or on your computer, and it's in a group setting. You only see your coach, nobody else sees you. You can talk during these sessions as well as there's a little chat feature, but it gives you that kind of group support, and also you've got that coach to talk about things, and you have something different each week that you talk about, and then assignments. And so it really just kind of moves you through each of the lessons. And the program is up to 52 weeks long. It's really robust. They talk about everything. It is very, I want to say, calorie focused, because they do have you choose a calorie goal at the beginning, and they do have you keep track of what you're eating. So it's really pretty structured, but it's a fantastic program. We've had lots of success with it. Then Wonder is also another great program. It used to be called Naturally Slim, but they just rebranded to Wonder Health. And this is one that you can do on your own. You still have support with coaching and a group community behind the scenes if you need it. But I really liked it because it was hard for me to schedule the 30 minutes once a week at the same time. So I was glad to be able to kind of run through this on my own. But great information. It's about mindfulness of eating. I actually just did it recently, and I lost and have kept off about 9 pounds. And it just took me back to all of those things, those habits that you have that aren't serving you, like eating too fast or not recognizing your hunger levels. And they just give you really easy ways to combat that and be mindful of it. But can't say enough about these programs. They're wonderful. They are totally no charge. If you're a Health Select participant, you can participate in both, just not at the same time. So you got to choose one and then go through that program, and then you can do the other one. Or if you start one and it's not working for you, you can drop out of it and join the other one. If you have happened to try these programs but just wasn't the good timing for you and want to try again, you can contact either one of them to ask to be re-enrolled in those courses, and they will let you do these courses once every year. So really, again, I tried the Naturally Slim a while back and I just wasn't ready, but this time I did it and I just embraced everything and kind of knew that I really wanted to lose about 10 pounds and found that it was really helpful. So I think the programs are great. I hope that you guys will take advantage of them. Then I think that might be it, Josh. You can try. Oh, yes. And then lastly, this is your PHA or personal health assistant phone number on here. And they can not only give you just those mental health resources, but you actually can reach out to them and say, I would like to talk to a clinician about my health. And they can talk to you about, you know, whatever it is that's going on with you. You might have multiple conditions that you're trying to find out, make sure that you're going to the right doctor's appointments and that you're dealing with things correctly. So you can speak with the physician, it's no charge, but they can also, these PHAs can answer anything about your benefits, including all of these wonderful wellness offerings. All right, I think that might be it. Okay. And I don't know if we wanted to open it up for questions, but yeah.
I saw that there were a couple in the chat about nutrition, so I'm happy to answer those. Let's see. So the first one was to explain the nutritional value or deterrence to late night bowl of cereal. So there are a couple of different ways to think about how to answer this. And so I'll approach it from two different places. Because it really depends on what are your goals to what the best approach to this might be. What we do know is that from a metabolic standpoint, we are most metabolically active in the morning and during our daytime hours when we need more energy to be able to support our processes through the day that we are doing. And we tend to, as we're walking around and moving, we're using energy to do that. So our body physiologically is just more active during those times. So eating really late at night is actually when from a metabolic standpoint, we're actually at our slowest. So having a late night bowl of cereal, if you're working towards certain goals, like you are wanting to try to maximize something like weight loss potential, or if you are trying to be better about regulating your blood sugar, for instance, and supporting less insulin resistance and things of that nature, then I would avoid the late night bowl of cereal. But at the same time, if you are feeling hungry and you haven't eaten adequately over the course of the day, and that is truly a feeling that you are having of hunger, then absolutely there's an appropriate time and place to have a late night bowl of cereal. So I don't want to say there's better or worse. It's just more based off of what are your goals. In terms of the snacks to replenish after high intensity activity, oh, that's such a great question. The main thing that I would say to consider around high intensity activity is how often are you engaging in this activity? If you are engaging in high intensity activity regularly, then really being mindful of the foods that you're eating around that activity is very important. If you're occasionally engaging in high intensity activity, I would say you still want to think about having good foods, but some of the things I'm going to mention right now may not be as critical for you to be thinking about if every now and then you're playing in a volleyball game or something of that nature. But for those type of high intensity activities, we want to think about fueling well before and after our activity. So I always say carbs are king when it comes to physical activity. Our body lives off of carbohydrates. It really needs carbohydrates to fuel intense type exercise, which is why you would see somebody like Lance Armstrong, if he's about to do a, bike ride, he can eat like pasta on the road, right? While he's going up the mountain, because he needs those carbohydrates to fuel that activity. So thinking about good quality carbohydrates around your activity beforehand, consuming something like a sandwich could be a good way to go, depending on how close you are to your workout. Having something like maybe a banana could be a really good way to go to get yourself a little carbohydrate right before a workout, or maybe some crackers and a little bit of peanut butter if your tummy's okay with that around high intensity activity. And then afterwards, you want to think about both protein and carbohydrates. You want to replenish your carbohydrate stores in your body so that you can start utilizing them again for energy, but then you also want to help to recover from that exercise, and protein is really helpful for that. So, something like a smoothie that has both protein and carbohydrates is a great way to go after a high intensity activity. Having something like maybe some chicken and rice or something along that line is also great for after a workout as well. I'm not sure what specific allergens are of importance to you from that perspective, but if like dairy is irritating or some of those types of carbohydrates that can be really helpful after an activity, I would say just stick with something like your protein and vegetables or protein and grains that work well for you.